mind-body problem. What happened to that problem? Well, is that problem still around? Well, a lot of people seem to think it's around. So there's a big, there's what's in fact sometimes called an orthodoxy in philosophy, which is that things can be reduced to, the orthodoxy is that philosophical questions about the mind and mental activity and mental events and so on should be reducible to the material world, to something about the physical world, which is supposed to give you a resolution of the mind-body problem. And there are big debates about whether you can do it or you can't do it and so on. These debates are rather curious because the mind-body problem doesn't exist. And it doesn't exist because it was demolished by Isaac Newton 3 centuries ago. Newton didn't have anything to say about the Cartesians had a theory of mind and a theory of body. In fact, science altogether had a theory of body. It was called the mechanical worldview, and it was very commonsensical. The mechanical, it probably is our common sense picture of the world. And that was science. The top scientists of the day, Huygens and others, were trying to develop a mechanical worldview to show that the world is a machine. That was the big job, show that the world is a machine. And then Descartes came, his argument was, well, yeah, the world's a machine, and in fact everything's a machine except the creative aspect of language use and some other things like that, which don't seem to be duplicable by automata. So that's the second substance, that's mind. Well, what happened to that picture? What happened is that Newton showed that nothing is a machine. In fact, that's exactly what he showed, if you think about it. What Newton showed, much to his distress, I should say, and to the distress of everyone else, who thought it was kind of like a reversion to traditional mysticism, is that the entire world is immaterial. The world is governed by immaterial forces, what were in fact called occult forces. Anybody knows, as Newton pointed out, it's an utter absurdity which no one with the slightest scientific, he said philosophical, but I mean scientific understanding could believe that one object can influence another if they're not in contact. That is a total absurdity, and it certainly is a common sense absurdity. It just happens to be true. He showed it was true. Universal gravitation showed that, in fact, what is an utter absurdity is true, and that was quite disturbing. But the effect of it was to show that the world isn't a machine. In fact, nothing's a machine. Even simple terrestrial and planetary motion aren't mechanical. The mechanical world picture was demolished. It's commonly said now, it's common these days in philosophy and elsewhere, to deride theories of the mind as being a ghost in a machine, and we've got to exorcise the ghost. But what's forgotten is that Newton exorcised the machine. He left the ghost untouched. He had nothing to say about the theory of mind. He, in fact, assumed that somehow if we ever figured this stuff out, it would incorporate mind. But it was left as a total mystery, and it remains a total mystery. In fact, it's just gotten more mysterious since, as physics has introduced more and more crazy ideas to try to account for what goes on in the world. So there is no notion of material, and there's no notion of physical, and there's no notion of body, and so on. Hence, there cannot be a mind-body problem. What there is just various aspects of the world, and you try to understand them the best you can, and unify your understanding as best you can. But I don't think that anyone has formulated a coherent version of the mind-body problem since the 17th century. So it's not at all clear to me, at least, what people are arguing about when they say they think that the mind can be reduced to the body, or they don't think it can, or whatever. Since there's no notion of body, the debate doesn't seem to be about anything. But the problems remain. I mean, the problems of of the mental aspects of the world, they remain. And they remain, for the most part, unsolved. We can pull out little pieces of them and get insight, like the nature of the mechanisms that underlie infinite knowledge. There we can get a lot of insight. But the main questions about the mental aspects of the world, like, for example, the question of coherent, appropriate, meaningful action, which is apparently uncaused as far as anyone can tell, that problem remains, and it remains completely mysterious.